Guys, here's your video today for about 3D and 2D shapes. So I'm going to read a story called The Greedy Triangle, written by Marilyn Burns, illustrated by Gordon Silveria. We may not read the entire book, but we're going to talk about a lot of the shapes that are in the book. And this video is going to be for everyone, even though there are two different worksheets that people are completing today. They are both about solid or flat shapes, 2D and 3D shapes, which you should have talked about in kindergarten. So this should be pretty much a review, just a few new shapes introduced. Once there was a triangle that was, as most triangles are, always busy. The triangle spent its time holding up roofs, supporting bridges, making music in a symphony orchestra, catching the wind for sailboats, being slices of pie and halves of sandwiches, and much, much more. And we may or may not have read this book already this year, but we're going to read it again right now. The triangle's favorite thing, however, was to slip into place when people put their hands on their hips. That way I always hear the latest news, it said, which I can tell my friends. The triangle's friends liked hearing the news. One day, the triangle began to feel dissatisfied. I'm tired of doing the same old things, it grumbled. There must be more to life. So the triangle went to see the local shapeshifter. How may I help you? The shapeshifter asked the triangle. I think if I had just one more side and one more angle, said the triangle, my life would be more interesting. That's easy to do, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the triangle into a quadrilateral. So a quadrilateral is a shape that has four equal sides. And the sides are the straight lines on an object, on a shape. And the corners the angles are just like the corners. It's where two sides meet and make a point. That's an angle. Life changed in a wonderful way. The quadrilateral was happy with all the new things it could do. The quadrilateral could be a baseball diamond, or first or second or third base. It could take a position on a checkerboard or a chessboard. It could be a television screen or a computer screen or a movie screen. It could frame windows or frame pictures and much, much more. You think he's happy though? No. The quadrilateral's favorite thing, however, was to be the pages of a book. I learned so many interesting stories that way, it said, which I can tell my friends. The quadrilateral's friends liked hearing the stories. But like I said, he's still not really happy. But one day the quadrilateral began to feel dissatisfied. I'm tired of doing the same old things, it grumbled. There must be more to life. So the quadrilateral went back to the shapeshifter. How may I help you now? The shapeshifter asked the quadrilateral. I think that if I had just one more side and one more angle, said the quadrilateral, my life would be more interesting. That's easy to do, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the quadrilateral into a pentagon. And a pentagon has 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it kind of looks like a house. So when you're shown a house and says, what shape is it? We're not looking for you to say a house. It has a special name, which is called a pentagon, which is just like a shape, is the shape of the building, the Pentagon that is in Washington, D.C. Life changed in a wonderful way. The Pentagon was happy with all the new things it could do. On a baseball diamond, the Pentagon could be home plate. It could be a section on a soccer ball, or appear inside when someone drew a 5-pointed star. So if you look inside the star, it looks like there's a pentagon inside. So that's what they were talking about. The Pentagon's favorite thing, however, was to be the headquarters of the United States military near Washington, D.C. I hear all the top secrets that way. It said, it's too bad I can't tell them to my friends since they're secrets. The Pentagon's friends couldn't help feeling left out. So they feel sad because he can't share with them like he could when he was a quadrilateral or a triangle. After a while, time seemed to pass slowly for the Pentagon, and it became dissatisfied. I'm tired of doing the same old things, it grumbled. There must be more to life. So the pentagon went back to the shapeshifter. So you're here again, the shapeshifter said to the pentagon. Now what would you like? I think if I just had one more side and one more angle, said the pentagon, my life would be more interesting. That's easy to do, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the pentagon into a hexagon. And a hexagon has 6 sides. Life changed in a wonderful way. The hexagon was happy with all the new things it could do. The hexagon fit in as floor tiles in houses and patios, and fancy crackers at parties and picnics. It worked as the socket of certain bolts and the prongs of certain wrenches. The hexagon's favorite thing, however, was to be the cell in a beehive. I love watching the bees as they buzz in and out, it said. The hexagon spent so much time in the beehive, it was too busy to talk to its friends. The friends missed the hexagon and couldn't help but feeling ignored. Again and again, the shape became restless, dissatisfied, and unhappy with its life. Again and again, it returned to the shapeshifter for more sides and more angles. The shapeshifter agreed to turn it into one shape after another: a heptagon with 7 sides, an octagon with 8 sides, which is just like a stop sign. And it looks very similar to a um, hexagon, but it has 8 sides instead of 6. And as he adds each of these sides, the shape looks really similar, but it starts to get a little bit more rounded because it has to have smaller sides. A nonagon, which is 9, and a decagon, 10, and on and on. Finally, the shape had many, many sides and many, many angles. Its sides were so small that it had trouble keeping its balance. Its friends couldn't tell which side it was on and began to avoid the shape. One day, when the shape was going down a hill, it began to roll. Faster and faster it went, screeching around corners, crashing into fences and trees, colliding with bicycles and terrifying walkers. At last, the shape came to a stop. It felt tired and dizzy, lonely and sad. Enough, thought the shape. I don't know which side is up. I can't keep my balance. My friends don't want me around. The shape could no longer remember why it had been so happy as a triangle in the first place. Very carefully, it made its way back to the shapeshifter. Aren't you happy yet? The shapeshifter asked. I want to be a triangle again, said the shape. I'm not surprised, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the shape back into a triangle. So he was greedy and he always wanted more, but he realized that more wasn't always better. The triangle was delighted to have its old shape back again and kept itself very busy. Once again, it held up roofs, supported bridges, made music in a symphony orchestra, caught the wind for sailboats, became slices of pie and halves of sandwiches, and much, much more. Since still the triangle's favorite thing was to slip into place when people put their hands on their hips. That way, I always hear the latest news, it said, which I can tell my friends. Its friends liked hearing the news and were glad the triangle was back in shape again. The end. So all of these shapes are 2D shapes because they're flat. A 3D shape is when it has dimension, which means it has depth and you can feel the shape. So it has more than just one side, not the sides when I say that they're straight lines, but it has a side that you can turn it around and it has, you can see something behind it. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to give you probably going to find a video on YouTube or on BrainPop that's going to help explain 2D and 3D shapes so that you can complete your assignment today. For most of you, you're going to be sorting 2D and 3D shapes, and it should be pretty easy because you'll see that it has extra lines on the 3D shapes because it has dimension. And that's what 3D is. D stands for dimension, which means that it has, it's hard to explain depth, but that's why I'm going to find another video to help with explaining that. But like I said, all of the shapes that were in this book were 2D shapes. And 2D shapes can be something called polygons. Polygons are shapes that are all closed. The lines aren't open like this. They have to be closed and meeting at one point or another. And so we have polygons that have only straight lines because they have to have sides. And a side is not a curved line. So for example, that would mean that a circle or a sphere or a heart don't have sides when you're looking at the curved lines. You only count the straight lines. But polygons could be a parallelogram, which would be a four-sided shape where two of the sides are the same length and they're parallel, meaning that they will go opposite sides of one another. But if the line keeps going, they will never ever connect or intersect, which means cross over one another. So there will never be a point where the two lines are touching. They will touch the two top. So for example, if I have a parallelogram, I would draw my shape like this. The top line and the bottom line, even though they connect to the lines on the side, these two lines here, this one here and this one here, are never going to touch one another. They are only going to touch the lines that are going down. And so this is similar to a square or a rectangle, only that the lines are at an angle. That means they're not straight, they go on a diagonal. So these two will be the same length, and these two will be the same length, but they're both parallel. These two lines will never touch, and these two lines will never touch. So I hope that this helps to explain 2D and 3D shapes. I will find another video to help as well. And if you have any questions, you can join me for my office hours from 1 until 2:30. Have a great day. Bye, guys.